Alrighty, everyone, this is the Money Peach Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Peach, and I'm going to be bringing on some of the most amazing people I can find so they can tell you how they do their life and their money the right way. Today's guest on the show is absolutely amazing. Pam Andrews from thescholarshipshark.com is coming on the show to share with us how she successfully was able to help her son earn over $700,000 in scholarships and grants. Let me repeat that. She helped her son get over $700,000 in free money so he can go to college, graduate, and not have to worry about student loan debt. She has also helped countless other students do the exact same thing. She's helped them generate over $1 million collectively in the form of scholarships, grants, and basically free money to go to school. So without further ado, let me bring on Pam Andrews from the Scholarship Shark. She's going to share with us where to get started, what to do next, and what you could be doing right now to help your future college graduate without student loans. Pam Andrews, thank you so much for coming on the Money Peach Podcast. Pam, you may be the first person to come on the show that I can actually say is an expert in both college admissions and how to get scholarships for college. So excited to have you on the show.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me, Chris.
So how I found out about you is I think someone mentioned you or it came across, but I remember seeing this and it shocked me. I had to read it like 3 or 4 times, and I'm just going to say this out loud. But Pam is known for helping her son win over $700,000 in scholarship money. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so officially in my mind, she's an expert because we know some people that have, generated maybe $125,000 in scholarships and grants, but you're 7 times that. So I'm like, okay, we got to get her on the show. But before we get started, before we jump into scholarships, give us a little brief background of, who you are and how you kind of got started in this world of helping people with scholarships.
Absolutely. So I'm a wife and mom. I have 4 kids. My oldest is 20. He's a rising junior. So he's going into his 3rd year of college. And then I have 2 teens, a 14-year-old, 16-year-old, and a 7-year-old. So I'll be doing this for a very long time. And my undergraduate degree is in electrical engineering. So I love systems thinking, process thinking, building things. And then out of school, I got involved with helping kids in the community get into school, and I coordinated and scheduled college tours, and it was just kind of a fun thing to do on the side, and worked with the city at the time, the city where I lived, and did some tours and some youth leadership programs with the kids. And years later is really when the business launched, and have some students who have graduated and now they're, married, have their own kids. But it wasn't until my son won, and I told him about his junior year, as we sit down and we had the money talk with him, I let him know that, if you will work with me, I can get you to where you need to get to. And we just, told him, this is what we've invested, what we've saved for you. This is the cost of attendance. This is what we're willing to let you borrow. We'll let you put a little skin in the game, and it wasn't much. And so this is the difference. And so once he knew that number, he was motivated. He knew where he really wanted to go. And we did it. And I really didn't think much of it, believe it or not. But once you win and you win big, people want to know, okay, so how did you do it? But more importantly, how do I do it? How do I get the same results that you did? And that's when the business was born. So I started with writing a book so that I could just put all the information at one location so people can do it themselves. But after the book, many people started saying, well, I've got information, but I need the transformative process. I need you to work with my student because, they're stuck. It's just not working. And that's when the college coaching program launched. And so I am involved in college advising, working as a college admissions coach, working with students to get into college, and again, focusing on the money part as well, which is big, big. A lot of times students just focus on getting in, but, I always tell students there are 2 yeses. Yes, you can get in, and then yes, it can get paid for, or we have a financial plan. So it's important to look at both of those pieces and not just think, okay, I'm going to focus on getting in, and then later on, we'll just focus on the money piece. It has to be a very holistic process.
So you're the first person I've ever heard say that, and it's profound, is there are 2 yeses when it comes to college. There's the yes of getting in, which I think we all understand. You think about all these different movies that we've watched over the years where, the envelope comes in the mail and they open it and yes, they got into school, I was just watching this, remember the movie Varsity Blues, where he opens up the envelope and it says, "Congratulations, you've been accepted to Brown." And that's the yes. But what nobody's answering yes or no to is how in the heck are you going to pay for this? And the normal way of thinking is, oh, you worry about that after school with 5 to 7% interest, right?
Right.
And wow, there's a much better way. And I'm a huge proponent of not going into debt for higher education. And people look at me with these raised eyebrows like, well, what are you talking about? It's just not possible. And that's why I was so excited when I found out, okay, Pam is an expert. She helped someone get $700,000 in scholarship money. So Pam, I'm just going to go over some of these stats with you that I've been looking over before. I was trying to get real prepared for this because whenever I'm working with an expert, I'm like, I got to at least know what I'm talking about a little bit. So tell me if I'm right or wrong on this because you are the expert. But according to latest studies, latest polls, we're about $1.4 trillion in student loan debt.
That's about right. That's correct.
Okay, $1.4 trillion. If you divide that out by all the students who have student loan debt, we're looking at roughly close to $40,000 per student.
That is absolutely correct.
Wow. Okay. So one of the things I wanted to look at before we hit this episode is I wanted to say, okay, what is the average taking them to pay off their student loans? And I'm going to skip over that part because I found something that was even more profound. This kind of really hit home for me. So this is done by Student Loan Hero. We'll put a link in our show notes to this article. But it says even former President Barack Obama wasn't able to pay off his student loan until age 43.
Isn't that something? Right.
That blows my mind.
Yeah.
The President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief, knows about student loans. Like personally knows about student loans. I thought that was just eye-opening. We'll put a link, like I said, in the show notes to that. But is it safe to say that your job is secure because this is an epidemic? This is no longer just a problem. I mean, I was in college between 2001 and 2005. And I remember during that time, Pam, that I went to Arizona State University, and I want to say a semester, it was like $1,100 a semester. Okay, so and that was in-state tuition, $2,200 a year. And luckily for me and a lot of the friends I went to school with, our parents cash flowed that because it wasn't a crazy burden. But those days are long gone. The inflation rate has gone up like crazy. So I guess let's just start with, where do you start? If someone's just listening to this going, okay, I have a teenager that's a sophomore that's getting ready to start, or I want to go back to school, or I'm a student myself and my parents are making me listen to this because they heard it first. Where do they start?
So I think one of the best places for students to start is to look at their schools and to think very critically and closely about their school list and their school choices. Typically, the largest amount of merit aid, and that's the money that you earn, will be granted from the institution, from the school. So start there. And I think it's important, sometimes students will just pick a school maybe because they've heard about it. Maybe a friend went there, or maybe it's far enough away from home that, they can get away from home, or, sometimes they don't know why they want to go where they want to go. But they may have an idea where they want to go, and they'll look at maybe the major, the program, the jobs that graduates land maybe 6 months out. But they haven't thought about the money. Is this school generous when it comes to merit aid? And if so, what do I need to do to qualify to get that money? It's so important to start there. And that starts early because here's the secret. And this is where my engineering background comes in. I like taking things apart and looking at them, kind of like TV show, like how things work. And so if you start at the end and you kind of reverse it, if you've got time on your side, you can say, if this is the GPA and this is the SAT or ACT score that's required to get this much money, then I'll make that my target. I find a lot of times students take tests, they'll just take the test, the SAT or ACT, and they have no idea what score they're aiming to get. They're just taking it because that's what you do. And that's what the guidance counselor said. And that's what your parents said. But you should really know what's your aim. And then maybe if you haven't thought about that and you kind of know, okay, this is where I am right now, then begin to build your list around where you are. So I think it's important to start at the institutional level, the college, the university, and not just look at the program, the major, the activities. Okay, yeah, I want to be a part of this club and I want this experience and I like this environment. But start with the money. Go to the college's website, click on the financial aid tab, look at the money. Most of them, because it's a common, or maybe it's a common question, or it should be a common question, but I know it's information they want to get out because they're endowed. They need to get this money out there. They've got money they've got to get rid of to people who have earned it or potentially have earned it. So they're going to put that information out there. It's not a secret. So start there. And as you're thinking about your schools, if you're building your list of schools and it's summertime, maybe you're vacationing, you're visiting grandparents or cousins, and your mom said, okay, we're going to visit this school, we're going to do a tour. Definitely get information on the merit aid that's granted at that school. So that is the best place to start for the money.
So I did not know that not all schools are created equally when it comes to giving out financial aid.
That's correct. Some are heavily endowed and extremely generous, and some are not. It's important to know that. And if you're looking at a school, let's say, I don't know, if it's a legacy school where your great grandfather went there and your grandfather went there and your father went there, and then you have to go there and they're not generous, well, then you've got to come up with another plan, which I call the second layer, which is the private money. And so if this school is where you just have to go for some reason, or, it's not generous with merit aid, then by golly, you better be applying for every private scholarship to which you're eligible. And the private money, those are the ones like your credit union and the Elks Club and the Rotary and Ronald McDonald House. I mean, Nike and Villa and just all kinds of, I was at Staples, an office supply store, a few months back. And in the window, there was a big giant poster that talked about it was a $500 scholarship, write an essay along with win like another $500 in supplies. I snapped a picture with my cell phone and immediately texted to all my students. I'm like, apply to this. So there's money everywhere. So it's important to inquire. Sometimes parents' employers will issue money. So, if you're working somewhere, ask your employer, do you issue money? And sometimes there are certain companies where students work, from fast food companies, they issue scholarships. So, you need to apply. If you've got time on your side, again, do both. Look at the institutional aid and then also look at the private money. And what I want the listeners to know is the institutional money is just for that particular school. So if you get accepted to XYZ University and they offer you $20,000 a year merit scholarship, and you have to maintain a 3.0 GPA or whatever the requirements are, that's only at that school. And then if you go to ABC College, then you need to take a look at what their merit money is. So it's about getting very organized as you're building your list, but focus on the money.
Okay, that makes sense. As you were talking, it was kind of spurring my mind on some things. So one thing that you had said was you have to go out and apply. These places are not coming to your door and knocking on the door and say, hey, Johnny, guess what? We have free money for you to go to college, right? You have to apply yourself. You have to go out there. And it's a little bit of work, correct?
Absolutely. They're giving you money. Think about it. I mean, we both have kids. And so, if my kids want money, well, you're going to work for it. If we're that way as parents, you can best believe that a college, an institution, university is going to be responsible with money that's donated to them and trusted to them. So they have a fiduciary duty to be very responsible in how they give out the money. Most of them will have requirements, maybe an application, because they don't know that you need it unless you apply. And so you apply, maybe you submit an essay, answering some of the essay prompts, which are just questions. And I always tell students to answer all parts of the questions because sometimes there are like 3 questions in the one paragraph or one prompt. So answer the questions and highlight your best you, but make sure you meet all the requirements. Some may require a recommendation letter, a couple of recommendation letters. Some may require an unofficial transcript, high school transcript, or an official high school transcript. But one thing they all require, or one thing that they all have, is a deadline. And it's so important for students to know that, and parents to know, that deadline is hard and fast. And when they say we need to receive it by this date, that doesn't mean postmarked. It doesn't mean you hit submit on that date. Like, you need to have it in their hands by that date. I think a lot of times students miss opportunities because they just simply miss the deadline. So it's important to understand what the requirements are. Even with colleges have scholarship application deadlines, and it's important to know what those are. One thing I want to point out, for some schools, there are 2 deadlines. So there's the college admissions deadline, and then there's the scholarship deadline. And this is why it's important to think of this as a big kind of holistic way. You can't just say, okay, I'm just going to get in, and then, around April, we'll just figure out how to pay for it. So no, that doesn't work. There's one school in particular where their application for their largest merit money is in October, mid-October, so around October 15th. But their first application deadline isn't until November. So if you're just focusing on, maybe you click on the admissions tab, or you get the brochure, or you see them at a college visit or a school visit, and you say, okay, I'm just going to apply by this date. Well, you've already missed your best effort, your best opportunity to get the most money because you've missed that October deadline. And once it's gone, it's gone. You can't explain that, oh, my computer crashed or, no, sorry. So it's important to understand what the deadlines are for private scholarships outside of the school and for the institutional scholarships. And don't just focus on the admissions. The one thing I have my clients do when we're working on the list, we want to know, is there a separate application process? Sometimes some schools will just use the admissions application to determine merit aid, but sometimes they require a separate application. So if there's a separate application, we want to know about that, and we want to get that and start working on that as well.
So my next question then, Pam, is in a perfect scenario, right? Sometimes we're always a little behind the eight ball, but when is a good time that parents should be thinking about, okay, we need to start encouraging or helping our students, our children, get involved in the application process? Is this something as early as 8th grade? Is it later? When would you kind of recommend?
I always recommend 10th grade. I like 10th. I find that 9th grade, most students, you have a few exceptions, but most, because of the transition from middle school to high school, they're getting their feet wet. It's totally new. They're little fish in a big pond. So, and they're just starting to get a feel for their courses and clubs and all that. So they're just still figuring it out. And they're not really thinking about college admissions. What I like about the 10th grade year, there are two things on the student side and the parent side. The beauty of the 10th grade year, you've got a couple years to build your experiences. And I always tell students, really try to get what you're going to get by June of your junior year, so that you're working on your essays, your applications, everything in the summer or very early fall to get it in very early. So you can't say, I'm going to, try to get that next higher test score October of my senior year or November of my senior year, or I'm going to really work to boost my GPA one last time in December of my senior year. You really want to focus early. So with the 10th grade year, that gives the student time to take a look at the clubs, activities, any service learning, community service, the kinds of experiences that they want to have. Because, if they're thinking college and you're moving your child through the college ready process and mindset, you want to use your summer strategically. You want to use your free time. You want them to begin to think about, what are some of the things I think I want to do after I graduate, and begin to work towards that. What are some of the experiences that I want to have and some of the clubs I want to get involved with? So the 10th grade year is really good because you've got all your 10th and then all of your 11th. Not to say you don't have your 12th grade year, but again, I really like to get it done solid. If you're going to lead or you're going to serve, really work on that your 10th and 11th grade year. And then on the parent side, with the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, it looks back 2 years. And so parents also have to think and plan, because if you make a purchase or you switch jobs and you don't roll over your IRA, you decide, well, I'm just going to cash it out. Your student going into the fall, that October 1 of their senior year is when you can begin to apply, complete that federal form. And it's looking back 2 years. So it's looking back at the academic, not the calendar year, not like the September to May of the sophomore year, but the January to December of sophomore and then the sophomore summer in your junior year. So you're kind of thinking about it going into your sophomore year. And then, okay, maybe I need to plan. I need to talk to my accountant, or I need to plan, or I need to complete the FAFSA forecaster. Like, I need to know what's going to be expected of our family to contribute to my child's education. So parents really need to, that sophomore year is so key. I love the sophomore year. And I find, again, that students have a maturity around that time period that they just don't have prior to. And then they don't have that anxiety of their senior year, like, oh, I've got to get it done. I didn't do it. So that sophomore year is a really good year. And again, because you're junior, most juniors are focusing on your testing. And so this way they can go into that junior year and really focus on either the SAT or ACT. And some of them are doing the AP exams in the spring of their junior year, because junior year is just hectic, crazy busy when it comes to college admissions and college planning for all kinds of tests on top of and these are college admissions tests on top of your regular course exams, midterms, finals, projects, things like that.
Hey guys, I just wanted to pause and take a second to say thank you from me to you for listening to and supporting the Money Peach podcast. Without listeners like you, this show definitely would not be possible, so thank you. The number one question that I receive is this: Peach, I just don't know where to start when it comes to my money. So many of us out there are living paycheck to paycheck. We have tons of debt. We're not making any headway. We can't save any money. We want to go on a freaking vacation where we pay cash for it. Oh, and let's talk about retirement savings and kids' college planning on top of that, right? Where do you start? Well, that's why we created the cash flow formula. The cash flow formula is the same system that Andrea and I used to pay off $52,000 in debt in only 7 months. And the best part is it's 100% free, meaning we are going to send you the free tools and a free lesson on how to set up your own cash flow formula. So to get started, go over to getcashflowformula.com. That's GET cashflowformula.com. Once again, head on over to getcashflowformula.com to get your free copy and your free lesson on how to get started the right way. All right, guys, now back to the show. As you were talking about the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid, you can do all of this online. And I've actually seen somebody kind of walk through it. I don't have a child old enough to, start this, but I've watched somebody else do it. And there is a lot to it.
Right.
It's not like a quick, you're in and out. But the amount of money so here's what's crazy is the amount of money left on the table in 2017 by simply not filling out a FAFSA. Okay. Mm-hmm. This is from NerdWallet. We'll put a link in our show notes to this as well. But $2.3 billion with a B, billion dollars was left on the table because people did not complete the FAFSA. They just simply didn't do it.
Yeah.
That's a crazy amount of money, $2.3 billion left on the table. And so it says here about 36% of people did not fill it out at all. They just didn't do it. And so parents, we're going to encourage our students and our children to go out there and apply, just like Pam said. But parents get involved with the FAFSA. It's not
Absolutely.
Easy and fun, but it is worth it. One of the things that I remember, you kind of sparked my memory here, is I remember back in 2000, right when we had kids, they were like 3 or 4 years old, I was researching on, how to raise money smart kids. What should I be doing with children about money? And so I came across this book called Smart Money, Smart Kids. It's a Dave Ramsey, Rachel Cruz book. I remember reading this story in there about a friend of the author. Her name's Rachel. And she had a friend that went to undergrad at Tennessee, and then she went to Vanderbilt. She had a single mom that worked 2 jobs. Her mom told her sophomore year that, sweetie, I cannot send you to college. You are going to need to apply yourself. And I don't even know where to start because I never went to college. And when I was going to school, we're not in the same world anymore as far as the cost. It's not like parents can teach kids what they did because it's not the same.
Right.
It's crazy. It's literally 50% of what you were able to get, but she got $350,000 total in free money. She went to both Tennessee and then to Vanderbilt.
That's awesome.
Now, one of the cool things in the story is they said, she spent about 10 to 12 hours a week applying to school for 2 years. Okay, applying to scholarships, I should say. And she got $350,000. Now, if you divide that out hourly, because this is the nerd in me, this is the spreadsheet in me, that's $300 an hour.
Yeah.
What college student out there is making $300 an hour? And you know what? It's actually more than that because this is interest free. Because if she doesn't do this, she has loans at about 5 to 7% interest.
Right.
So just think about that when you're facing that FAFSA or you're applying, you're like, these essays are ridiculous. It could be $300 an hour. And I'm going to just say this, in your case, it's $600 an hour because you had $700,000. So, that's top-notch doctors in the world don't make $300 an hour.
Right. And when you think about the multiplication effect, and opportunity cost. So now you have that money to go to school. You're able to get in, get out. You're not burdened with debt. So now the money that you earn, you get to invest a little bit sooner because you're not paying back student loan. So the impact is kind of exponential. It's not just the hourly, but it's like the hourly on steroids. It's a little bit more because your money is free to do other things, to invest, to purchase a home. To make some wise choices as a young person. So it's powerful. And when families grasp the concept, it's a really good thing.
Yeah, if you take away the monetary piece of it and you just asked a student, do you want to graduate with handcuffs or do you want to graduate free? And that's what it comes down to, because if the 44th president of the United States was paying off student loans till he was 43 years old, this could affect anybody, right? This affects anybody and everybody. You're not immune to it if you do not apply. The average student graduated with $40,000 in debt. That's not interest-free, people. That's tacked on with some juice.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, this is crazy.
It is. And I think a lot of times families just make debt a default. It's just like, oh, we'll just borrow it and not really consider scholarships and grants as an option. So they'll just pursue the path of, let me just figure out the best way, maximize the Stafford loan, and I'll get the Parent Plus and maybe another private loan. But it's important for our kids to have some skin in the game. It's going to be their debt eventually, but why not? Because there's so many benefits. I mean, the money is great, but there's so many other benefits to winning money beyond just the money. And so I think when people think in terms of the bigger picture and what our kids, who they become as a result, it's worth the work. It's really worth putting the time in for the students. The other thing I wanted to say too, as you were talking about the FAFSA, I tell every family, I don't care how much you make, it's worth it to complete. Some schools will not award money from the school, some of their grants, and even some of their scholarships until they know that that family has completed the FAFSA, because they want to know that you've done as a baseline, as a minimum, this form. So it's worth it to do it. I mean, it takes a little bit of time. You need to have some documents, your bank statements, and, just have a few things, your social security number and your kid's social security number. So it's just really worth the time. And it's like less than an hour. It doesn't take long once you have all your documents ready to go. But it's one of those things that you just want to do it. Even if you may not qualify for any federal Pell Grant or federal aid, there are some states that require the FAFSA. So when you go to apply for state money, folks don't even know there's money on the federal level, there's money on the state level, but the FAFSA will trigger the state money. So it's important to complete that document. Like, it's not wasted time to do it.
Yeah. Bottom line is, if it's something that you can fill out and do, you're definitely better off doing it than not doing it. Put it that way.
Correct.
So those who take action are the ones that usually are the fullest at dinner, right? I mean, they're the ones that are having these stories. So you have transitioned over the years, and you've helped, many, many people do what you were able to do for your son as far as getting scholarship money. I'm reading here that you've actually helped clients win over $1 million in scholarships. That's correct?
That's correct. Yep. That's to date over the last few years. That's correct. And I always tell them, I love when I start working with students, I always fill them with vision and we talk about what their goals are. But I tell them, okay, I want you to be my next poster child. This is great what I did with my son and great what we did in 2017, but this is a new year and I want you to put your best effort forward. And I want you to get the most out of this. I want you to look back and say, whoa, I did it all. Like, I left it all on the table. I have no regrets. Like, I worked really hard. And it's a really rewarding feeling when students do really well. And, I love when they call me or text me and tell me they've won. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so exciting. I mean, next to their moms, I'm just super, super excited. So yeah, absolutely. So it's really rewarding when kids win and win big.
Pam, I know that obviously you and your son together were able to generate over $700,000. But what I truly want to know is, give me maybe one of your classic success stories of somebody that isn't related to you, that's not your son, that came through, you met with them, you coached them up, and what the result was.
Absolutely. So I'll give you a recent one from this year. I'll just use his first name. I'll call him the guilty, but his first name is Tyler. And so he was new to me. I didn't have him in the 10th or the 11th. We started in August. And I remember when his mother, we did our discovery call and we talked, and she just said, he's so gifted, so bright. But, I'll just say what she said. But she said, but he's so lazy, he won't do the work. And I said, well, let me talk to him and let me kind of assess if, And so long story short, I love, and we're in two different states. He's in Florida and I'm in Delaware. And we have our Zoom meetings. And I remember just the recording when he had gotten into Penn State and won, got into their honors program. He got into Drexel and won a lot of money, got into their engineering program and won through several schools and the private scholarships. And we were actually coming back on vacation, Easter weekend, spring break weekend. And we're in the car as a family driving home. And it was about 10 o'clock at night. And he actually called me because all my students have my cell phone number to contact me. So he actually called me and I'm thinking, oh my word, why is he calling me so late? Is everything okay? And he told me, he said, we just got in. I was going through the mail and he just won another very large scholarship, a very competitive scholarship. And I put him on speaker because, my husband kind of knows what I do, and I thought, oh my word, I was super, super excited. And I remember his mother, and I need to get her video testimony, but she literally said, we could not have done this without you. And I told her, she called me the teenage whisperer. And I said, well, sometimes our kids will do for others what they won't do for us. And so he's definitely my most recent success story. For the school where he chose with the private and the institutional aid, he's probably about maybe 60% covered, but he knows what to do to keep going. So he definitely had tremendous success in terms of not only getting into very competitive programs, but having a large portion funded and knowing what needs to be done each step of the way to finish the distance.
Since we don't have his last name, could you maybe just throw out numbers so I can kind of visualize? I'm trying to visualize in my head what kind of numbers he's been able to generate so far.
Yeah, it definitely 6 figures. So, I mean, like at one school, honestly, it's like 68,000 and another was around 50-something thousand. So that's at the institutional level. And then private money around 40,000 that will go with him and spread out over 4 years. And that's one thing I keep telling myself I've got to do. I've transitioned from my graduates now to my next group. And it's like, talking to my VA, like, we've got to record all these numbers and do a cute little mean post thingy and post the image with the totals. But well over 6 figures for him alone. But what I always tell families when it comes to the numbers that I share, what I want people to learn and kind of to extract from my story and from my students is that the 1-2 punch works. Don't ever do an either or, like, oh, we're only going to go here. We're only going to apply at the school level. No one wins those other scholarships. Yes, somebody's going to win them. So why not you? And you're not going to win one if you don't apply to it. And then some people will just apply for private and not even think about the school and then work on it on the back end. And you can win all the way through. I have another student who actually won. He's episode number 13 on my podcast, but he actually got into school. He didn't win anything his senior year. He was just a real stick in the mud, gave his mother a hard time, gave me a hard time. And, we just kept working together. But he actually landed a full tuition scholarship second semester of his freshman year. He got into school. And his story is such an incredible story because it just shows that it's never too late. And even in school, you can continue to win money. So those are and that was in 2016. So those are kind of 2 student who wins on the front end and then one who just keeps going and wins a significant amount of money.
Man, that is so cool. I mean, I'm sitting here thinking, when I was a senior in high school, I was doing stupid things. You got these other seniors in high school that are generating, 6 figures that they don't have to pay back so they can go to the school of their, I mean, that's just, I got like goosebumps talking about it, Pam, because that's so big. Being on the other side of college, we didn't have crazy amount of student loan debt, but we had it. And I remember it wasn't 40,000's worth, but we did have some. And I remember thinking to myself, this sucks. Like, this is terrible. And now it's way worse than it was when we got out of school. And if somebody listening on their side doesn't know what it's like to have a student loan, just go talk to anybody that does.
Absolutely.
And you'll see it in their face that it is a burden. It's on their mind every single day. People don't buy houses because they have a student loan. They don't leave the job they hate, take a leap of faith because of student loans. There's many things that hold them back in life because of student loans. And everybody's talking about it. I'm good with this. Everybody's talking about here's the best way to cut back your lifestyle to pay off your student loans as quickly as possible. But Pam's talking about let's be proactive here. The number one habit of highly successful people is they're proactive. Let's hit this on the front end. That's awesome. I can only imagine the fulfillment you get out of what you do when you pick up those calls at 10 p.m.
Yeah. I absolutely love my students. I really do. I love working with them. I enjoy my parents. And I just see mom's anxiety goes down, to have someone do it with you and often for you and to know exactly what the next steps are. I mean, it's really good. I mean, a lot of parents are busy and actually all of my parents are college graduates. So they've been through the process, but they know it's different. It's different from 5, 10, 20 years ago. It's really a burden lifted for them to work with someone who knows exactly what to do, when to do it, and how to be competitive in this process.
Pam, if we wanted to get in contact with you, set up a discovery call, listen to your podcast, just learn more about what you have to offer, where is the best way to get in contact with you?
So my website is thescholarshipshark.com, THE scholarship and shark altogether.com. And I have a podcast, the Scholarship Shark Podcast, and I share college admissions tips and scholarship tips, and I feature different scholarship winners. And each story is so encouraging. And I actually target that for the teen. So when I'm typically saying you and yours, it's really for teenagers, although moms typically listen. So that I have that. And then I'm on Facebook and I'm on Instagram as well. Instagram is Scholarship Shark and Facebook is Scholarship Shark.
Okay. So if you're running or jogging, you're on the train, you don't have a piece of paper, we are going to take everything she just said. We're going to put them in our show notes, moneypeach.com/session 103. That's moneypeach.com/session 103. And anything that Pam and I talked about will be found there. And so, Pam, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on the show. I have two more questions for you. Two more questions before I let you go. Okay. I'm a big believer in leaders are readers. And I'm always trying to listen to a book on Audible and read a book at the same time. 2 books a month is my goal. So I'm going to ask you, if you could only give away one book for the rest of your life, which book would it be and why?
I think, and I'm going to probably default to one I've recently read, but I love The One Thing by Gary Keller because it just narrows in on focus. I mean, there's so many great quotes in the book that, the person who chases 2 rabbits will catch neither one, because I teach students on just getting focused and the power of the one thing. So I just love that. I tend to do a lot of things. And so to focus on one thing was just a huge mindset shift for me and a way of doing things. So I just find it to be more powerful to focus on one thing, get one thing done, and then move on to the next thing. So I love the One Thing book.
I love that book too. And I actually listened to that on Audible. As a gee whiz here, if you listen to it on Audible, they throw in a song on the front end that's actually really good and it might make you cry. So that's just a little bonus there. Okay, next question I have for you is the background of the home screen on your phone. What is it?
It's a picture of my kids, all 4 of them. And I always take a new one whenever we're all together. So whenever we visit him at school, I take a new one and keep it. Or if he comes home for break or something like that, there's always a new kid picture on my phone, a recent kid picture.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So Pam, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you
I really
for having
appreciate you. And to be honest with you, just from me to you, I really appreciate what you are doing. I mean, it's so refreshing when we bring a guest on the show and you can really feel how much they care about the people they're helping, and the results speak for themselves. So thank you for what you're doing. Student loans are out of control, and it's people like you that are you're making a change. You're making a huge dent in a huge problem. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
And just like that, we wrap up another amazing episode of the Money Peach podcast. All the show notes, the links, anything Pam and I talked about can be found over at moneypeach.com/session103. That's moneypeach.com/session103. Special thanks goes out to my producer, Steve Stewart, and my assistant, Kayla Sloan. Without them, this show would not be possible. Stay tuned next week for episode 104, where I am bringing on an expert in crowdfunding for real estate. Yes, how to pool your money together so you can get access to some of these properties that were once only for the top 1% earners. The walls have been broken down, the barriers of entry have been lowered, and it is accessible for everyone. Craig is going to teach us and share with us how we can do that. Thank you guys so much for listening. We'll see you guys next week, and God bless. Boom, 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 boom.